Welcome to Night Whisper. Night Whisper brings you the darkest tales from the shadows. Join our community. Subscribe, leave a like, and prepare yourself for stories that will haunt your dreams. I found the recording in a forgotten archive at the National Air and Space Museum in Washington. September of 2025. I was researching early female aviators for my dissertation when I came across this manila envelope with the words Pacific Test Flight Program 1935 Restricted stamped on it. Everything that I thought I knew about aviation history changed with the tape inside. My name is Dr. Eleanor Hayes, and I teach aerospace history here at Georgetown University. For 3 decades, I have studied the pioneers of early flight: Amelia Earhart, Bessie Coleman, Jacqueline Cochran, women who defied gravity and expectation, taking to the skies. But there was a name that I had not heard until that afternoon in September: Katherine Marie Sullivan. The official records show nothing. No birth certificate filed with the Bureau of Vital Statistics. No pilot's license registered with the Department of Commerce. No employment records with any aircraft manufacturer or test flight program. According to every database and archive I've searched, Katherine Sullivan never existed, but the recording tells a different story. The audio quality is poor. 90 years of degradation turned most of it into static and hiss, but certain moments come through with crystalline clarity. A woman's voice, calm at first, professional, reading instrument readings to ground control, then fear, then terror, then something worse than terror, something I still can't name. The tape runs 47 minutes. The last 12 minutes are the most disturbing audio I've ever heard. I've listened to it hundreds of times. Each time, I catch something new, some detail that makes my skin crawl and my hands shake. I've consulted audio forensic specialists. They confirm the recording is authentic. 1935-era microphone technology. Period-correct radio interference patterns. No evidence of tampering or digital manipulation. The voice is real. The fear is real. What she encountered over the Pacific Ocean that January morning is also real. I know this because I found corroborating evidence. A weather station log from Midway Atoll dated January 11th, 1935. The entry, written in fading pencil, mentions unusual radio interference during test flight transmission. A repair invoice from the Naval Air Station at Pearl Harbor, dated January 15th, shows emergency maintenance on a Douglas transport aircraft with unexplained instrument damage and cockpit window stress fractures. And there's one more piece of evidence, the most disturbing one. 3 months ago, a commercial pilot flying the Los Angeles to Honolulu route reported hearing strange sounds on the emergency frequency. Not words, just breathing, slow, rhythmic, inhuman. The transmission lasted 47 seconds before cutting off, the same duration as the clearest segment of Katherine Sullivan's final broadcast. I'm telling this story now because I believe people need to know the truth. What happened to Katherine Sullivan wasn't an accident or equipment failure. It wasn't pilot error or weather-related disaster. She encountered something in the sky that day, something that shouldn't exist, something that's still out there. This is her story, as best as I can reconstruct it from the fragments she left behind. Katherine Sullivan was 28 years old in January of 1935. She'd earned her pilot's license 3 years earlier. One of only 67 women in America licensed to fly at that time. She came from money. Her father owned a steel mill in Pittsburgh. He disapproved of her flying, thought it unladylike, dangerous, a waste of her expensive Vassar education. But Katherine was stubborn. She used her trust fund to buy a used Stearman biplane and barnstormed county fairs across Pennsylvania and Ohio. Loop-the-loops and barrel rolls for crowds of farmers and factory workers. $5 for a 10-minute ride. By 1934, she'd logged over 800 flight hours, more than many male pilots twice her age. That's when the Navy noticed her. Or rather, that's when someone at the Navy noticed her. The records don't say who. Just that in November of 1934, Katherine received a telegram at her Pittsburgh apartment. It offered her a contract position with the Pacific Test Flight Program. Triple her current income, all expenses paid, the work would be classified. She couldn't discuss it with anyone, not her family, not friends, not fellow pilots. She signed the contract the same day. 2 weeks later, she boarded a train west, San Francisco first, then a cargo ship to Hawaii, then a smaller boat to a facility on the northern coast of Oahu that doesn't appear on any maps from that era. The Pacific Test Flight Program was testing new long-range navigation systems. The Navy wanted to extend patrol ranges across the Pacific. Keep eyes on Japanese military movements, monitor shipping lanes. They needed pilots willing to fly long solo missions over empty ocean. Hours without visual landmarks, just instruments and radio guidance from ground stations thousands of miles away. It was dangerous work. 3 pilots had already died. Engine failures over open water, radio malfunctions leaving them lost and fuel-starved. The Pacific was unforgiving in 1935. No GPS, no satellite tracking, no search and rescue helicopters. If you went down, you disappeared. But Katherine wasn't afraid. She'd spent her life proving she could do anything a man could do. She wasn't about to let fear stop her now. Her training lasted 6 weeks. Radio procedures, instrument navigation, emergency protocols. She flew practice runs around Oahu, short hops at first, then longer missions out to sea and back. She impressed her instructors, cool under pressure, precise with her instrument readings, never flustered by equipment malfunctions or weather changes. Lieutenant Commander James Harrison was her primary instructor, a decorated Navy pilot who'd flown reconnaissance missions over the Pacific since 1928. He trained 43 pilots for the test program. Only 12 had passed his evaluation. Katherine was the first woman he'd ever trained. He didn't want her there initially. Made that clear the first day. But Navy brass had overruled his objections. They needed pilots. Gender didn't matter if you could fly. "You'll wash out in a week," he told her during their first flight together. "Women don't have the constitution for long-range solo work. The isolation breaks them." Katherine didn't argue. She just flew, and flew brilliantly. By the end of the first week, Harrison stopped making comments about her gender. By the end of the second week, he was recommending her for advanced training. By the 6th week, he told the base commander that Katherine Sullivan was the best natural pilot he'd ever trained. "She's got something the others don't," he said in his final evaluation. "Situational awareness. She processes information faster than anyone I've seen, stays calm when things go wrong, makes good decisions under pressure. If we had 100 pilots like her, we could patrol the entire Pacific." The evaluation is in the Navy archives. I found it buried in a file marked Personnel, Discontinued Programs. Someone had stamped confidential across Katherine's name in red ink, as if they wanted to hide her existence even in the records. But they missed one copy. The night before her final test flight, Katherine wrote a letter to her father. I found it in her personal effects. The Navy had stored them in a warehouse in San Diego. They were scheduled for destruction in 2026. I managed to get access 3 months before they would have been incinerated. The letter was in a sealed envelope, never mailed. Perhaps she planned to send it after the mission, or perhaps she changed her mind. I opened it. The paper had yellowed, the ink had faded, but Katherine's handwriting was still legible, neat, precise, like everything else about her. "Dear Father," it began, "I know you don't approve of my flying. I know you think I've wasted my life chasing something unladylike and dangerous. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should have stayed in Pittsburgh, married Thomas Whitfield like you wanted, had children, hosted dinner parties, lived the life you planned for me. But I couldn't do it, Father. I couldn't be that person. When I'm on the ground, I feel trapped. suffocated, like I'm wearing someone else's skin. But when I'm flying, when I'm up there in the sky with nothing but horizon in every direction, I'm free, really free. For the first time in my life, I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. Tomorrow, I fly my final test mission. If it goes well, they'll make me a permanent instructor. I'll train other pilots, pass on what I've learned, make a real contribution to something important. I wish you could be proud of me. I wish you could see me the way Lieutenant Commander Harrison sees me, as a pilot, not as your disappointing daughter who refused to follow the path you laid out. But even if you never understand, even if you never forgive me for defying you, I need you to know something. I love flying more than I've ever loved anything. And if something happens to me up there, if I don't come back, I'll have died doing exactly what I was meant to do. Your daughter, Katherine. The letter destroys me every time I read it, because Katherine knew. On some level, she knew that flight would be different, dangerous, perhaps fatal. But she went anyway. That's courage, real courage. Not the absence of fear, but flying into the unknown despite the fear. Because the unknown is where you find truth. By early January, they cleared her for long-range solo missions. January 11th was supposed to be routine. A 6-hour flight in a modified Douglas transport, north from Oahu, out over empty ocean. 4 hours to a point 1,500 miles northwest, then turn around. Come back. The aircraft carried extra fuel tanks, emergency rations, a life raft, flares, everything she'd need if something went wrong. Ground control at the Oahu facility would monitor her the entire time. Radio check-ins every 30 minutes. She'd read instrument panels, report weather conditions, confirm her position. Simple, safe. As safe as flying alone over the Pacific Ocean could be in 1935. Katherine arrived at the hangar at 5:30 in the morning. Dark still, stars brilliant in the tropical sky. The Douglas transport sat on the tarmac. Mechanics had worked through the night preparing it. She did her pre-flight inspection alone, walked around the aircraft, checked the control surfaces, tested the fuel lines, examined the tires. Everything standard procedure. But something felt different that morning. The mechanics noticed it too. One of them, a man named Rodriguez, approached her as she finished her inspection. "You okay, Miss Sullivan?" he asked. "You seem, I don't know, distracted." Katherine forced a smile. "Just nervous. First long-range solo without an instructor on board?" Rodriguez nodded but didn't look convinced. "Weather's perfect. Forecast shows clear skies all the way to your turnaround point. You'll be fine." "I know." But her voice lacked conviction. Lieutenant Commander Harrison arrived at 6:15, clipboard in hand, final briefing notes. They went over the flight plan in the operations room, route, frequencies, check-in times, emergency procedures. Harrison kept looking at her, studying her face. "Something bothering you, Sullivan?" he finally asked. Katherine hesitated, then shook her head. "No, sir. Just want to make sure I don't miss anything." "You won't. You're the most thorough pilot I've trained. Trust your preparation. Trust your skills. And if something feels wrong, anything at all, abort the mission. Come home. We can always reschedule." "Yes, sir." But they both knew she wouldn't abort unless absolutely necessary. This flight was too important. Her future with the program depended on it. Harrison signed off on the flight plan at 6:35. "Good luck, Sullivan. See you in about 7 hours." "Yes, sir. 7 hours." As Katherine walked to the aircraft, Harrison called after her. "Sullivan, wait." She turned. He hesitated, then spoke. "I've been flying over the Pacific for 8 years, logged over 2,000 hours. And I've seen things up there, things I can't explain, things that don't make sense. Most of the time, it's nothing. Tricks of light, fatigue, atmospheric phenomena. But sometimes..." He trailed off. "Sometimes what, sir?" "Sometimes it's not nothing. Sometimes you get the feeling you're not alone up there. Like something's watching. pacing you. The other pilots feel it too. We don't talk about it, not officially, but we all know the Pacific isn't empty. Something lives in that sky, and if it shows itself to you, don't try to understand it. Don't try to communicate with it. Just fly home, fast as you can. Understand? Katherine stared at him. Sir, are you saying? I'm saying, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong. Come home. That's an order. Yes, sir. She climbed into the cockpit, strapped herself in, started the engine. The propeller caught, roared to life. Harrison stood on the tarmac, watching, his face troubled. Katherine gave him a thumbs up. He returned it, but neither of them smiled. Katherine took off at 6:42 in the morning. The sun had just cleared the horizon. The ocean below glittered copper and gold. Her first radio transmission came at 7:15. Ground, this is Test Flight 7, altitude 8,000 feet, airspeed 120 knots, position approximately 100 miles northwest of base, weather conditions clear, visibility excellent, over. The ground controller's response crackles on the recording. Male, young, professional. Test Flight 7, ground. Copy your position. Continue on current heading. Next check-in at 7:45. Over. Roger. Ground, 7:45. Test Flight 7 out. Nothing unusual. Standard radio procedure? Katherine's voice was steady, matter of fact. The next transmission at 7:45 was equally routine. Position update, instrument readings, weather still clear. At 8:15, her tone changed slightly. Not alarmed, just puzzled. Ground, this is Test Flight 7. I'm picking up some interference on my radio. High-pitched tone, intermittent. It's not affecting communications, but it's distracting. Can you confirm you're not experiencing technical issues on your end? Over. Test Flight 7, ground. Negative on technical issues. Our equipment shows normal operation. The interference may be atmospheric. We've had reports of unusual sunspot activity this week. Recommend you continue monitoring. Let us know if it worsens. Over? Roger, ground. We'll monitor and report. Test Flight 7 out. At 8:45, Katherine reported the interference had stopped. Position normal, fuel consumption on schedule, everything proceeding according to flight plan. At 9:15, the interference returned. But this time, it wasn't a high-pitched tone. Ground, this is Test Flight 7. The interference is back, but it sounds different now. Almost like, I don't know how to describe it, like someone breathing into a microphone. Heavy, slow. It's faint, but definitely there. Can you hear it on your end? Over. A pause. Then the ground controller's voice, slightly confused. Test Flight 7, ground. Negative. We're not hearing anything unusual. Your signal is clear. Recommend you check your headset connection. Maybe a loose wire creating feedback. Over. Ground. Test Flight 7. I've checked the headset. Connection is secure. The sound is definitely coming through the radio. It's getting louder now. Over. Katherine adjusted the volume control. The breathing sound grew louder in response. Not louder because she'd turned up the volume. Louder, as if whatever was making the sound was moving closer. She checked her instruments again. Altitude, 8,000 feet. Airspeed, 120 knots. Heading, 320 degrees. Fuel, 70% remaining. Everything normal. But the breathing sound continued. Rhythmic, deliberate. In and out. In and out. It reminded her of the iron lung machines she'd seen at hospitals. Mechanical, but somehow organic at the same time. As if something was using machinery to breathe. Or mimicking mechanical breathing. Ground, this is Test Flight 7. I'm going to switch to secondary frequency, see if the interference follows. Stand by. Over. She flipped the frequency selector. The radio hissed with static for a moment, then cleared. and the breathing sound was still there, unchanged, unaffected by the frequency change. Ground, this is test flight 7 on secondary frequency. The interference persists. It's not frequency specific. Whatever's causing it, it's somehow affecting both channels. Over. Another pause. Longer this time. Test flight 7, ground. Run a frequency check. Confirm you're on the correct channel. We want to rule out crosstalk from another aircraft. Over. The recording captures Katherine's response. I can hear the click of switches, the brief squelch of static as she cycled through frequencies. Ground, frequency check complete. I'm on the correct channel, and there's no other aircraft within 500 miles according to your last briefing. The breathing sound is still there. It's not mechanical. It sounds organic, human, but deeper somehow. Over. The ground controller's voice took on a sharper edge, not quite alarm, but heightened attention. Test flight 7, ground. Copy that. We're going to have you return to base early. Abort the test mission. Turn to heading 140. That will bring you back to Oahu. We'll troubleshoot the radio issue once you're on the ground. Over. Roger, ground. Turning to heading 140. Beginning return to base. Test flight 7 out. This should have been the end of it. A minor equipment malfunction. An early return. Nothing unusual. But then came the 9:45 transmission. Katherine's voice was different, higher, tighter. Fear bleeding through her professional composure. Ground, this is test flight 7. I need to report something. I saw something. Outside the aircraft. In the sky beside me. A shadow. No, not a shadow exactly. A reflection maybe? In my window. Like something is flying next to me. But when I look directly at it, there's nothing there. Just empty sky. But the reflection, the shape, it's still there. Over. The ground controller's response came quickly. Too quickly. He was trying to stay calm, but I can hear the concern. Test flight 7, ground. Describe what you're seeing. Size, distance, any visible details. Over. Katherine's hands were shaking on the control yoke. She forced herself to breathe, to focus, to describe what she was experiencing with precision. Ground. The shape is human-sized, maybe 6 feet tall. It appears to be maybe 15 feet from my starboard wing, moving at the same speed as the aircraft, same altitude. When I look at it through the corner of my eye, I can see details. Arms, legs, a head. But the proportions are wrong. The limbs are too long, thin, like they've been stretched. And there's no clothing, no features, just a dark silhouette. But when I turn my head to look directly at it, it disappears, only to reappear in my peripheral vision a moment later. Over. She paused, wiped sweat from her forehead. The cockpit felt suddenly cold despite the tropical sun beating down on the canopy. Ground. I'm also experiencing temperature fluctuations in the cockpit. It just dropped at least 10 degrees in the last minute. My breath is fogging. I can see it. But the outside air temperature gauge shows normal reading for this altitude. Over. The ground controller's voice had lost its professional calm. Real alarm was creeping in. Test flight 7, ground. Check your heating system. You may have a malfunction. As for the visual phenomenon, maintain your current heading. Maintain current altitude. Do not deviate from your flight plan. We're calculating your estimated time of arrival. You should be back at base in approximately 3 hours. Do you have enough fuel? Over. Affirmative, ground. Fuel is sufficient. But I'm not comfortable continuing. Whatever this is, it's getting closer. The breathing is constant now, and I keep seeing movement in my periphery. Can you confirm there's no other aircraft in my vicinity? No weather balloons? No. I don't know what else could be out here. Over. Katherine glanced at her right wing again. The reflection was still there. Closer now. Maybe 10 feet from her wingtip. And then it moved. Not like an aircraft moves. Not with purpose or aerodynamic logic. It simply shifted position instantaneously. One moment 15 feet away. The next moment 5 feet away. No transition. No movement through the intervening space. Just a jump. Like watching a film with frames cut out. Ground. This is test flight 7. The phenomenon just moved closer. It didn't fly closer. It just appeared closer. Instantaneous displacement. I don't understand what I'm looking at. This doesn't follow any physics I know. Over. Her voice was rising, panic bleeding through her training. Test flight 7, confirmed. Radar shows no other aircraft, no balloons, nothing. You are alone in that airspace. The reflection you're seeing is likely a trick of light. Sun angle on your canopy creating optical illusions. The breathing sound is equipment malfunction. Both are explainable. Stay calm. Maintain course. Over. But Katherine's next transmission made it clear she wasn't experiencing optical illusions. Ground. This is test flight 7. It's not a reflection anymore. I can see it directly now. It's... oh God. It's outside my window, right outside, maybe 10 feet away. Ground. There is something flying next to this aircraft. I repeat, there is something flying alongside me. Over. Her voice had risen to near panic. The professional pilot training cracking under the weight of genuine terror. Test flight 7. Describe what you see. Give us details, shape, color, size. Stay calm and report. Over. Ground. I can't. It's not solid. It's like smoke, but it has form. Human shape almost. Arms, legs, head. But wrong. All wrong. Too long. Too thin. And the face. There's no face. Just darkness. Empty space where a face should be. And it's looking at me. I know it sounds crazy, but I can feel it looking at me. Ground. Please tell me you see something on radar. Tell me this is real. Over. Test flight 7. Negative. Radar shows nothing. You are alone. I repeat, you are alone. The stress of solo, long-range flight can cause hallucinations. This is documented. You need to trust your instruments and continue your approach to base. Do you understand? Over. Ground, this is not a hallucination. The entity just moved. It's now directly in front of my aircraft. I can see it through the windscreen. It's larger now, growing, expanding. The breathing sound is deafening. I can't. Ground. I'm losing control of the aircraft. The instruments are going haywire. Altitude indicators spinning. Compass won't hold steady. Airspeed showing impossible readings. Ground. I think this thing is affecting my plane. Over. The ground controller's voice remains steady, but I can hear the rising alarm beneath his professional tone. Test flight 7. Attempt to regain control. Check your circuit breakers. Cycle your instruments. Report your actual altitude and heading based on visual assessment of horizon. Over. Katherine tried to focus on the instruments, but they made no sense. The altimeter showed her climbing and descending simultaneously. The compass spun like a top. The airspeed indicator flickered between 0 and 300 knots, but the aircraft was flying level. She could feel it. The control yoke was responding normally. The engine sounded healthy. Only the instruments had gone crazy, and the entity was directly in front of her. So close now that she could see details. It wasn't solid. Not exactly. More like dense smoke given form and structure. Dark gray, almost black, with faint luminescence along its edges, like foxfire on rotting wood. The proportions were all wrong. the torso too narrow, the limbs too long, 6 or 7 feet from shoulder to fingertip, the legs even longer, joints that bent in places human joints didn't exist. And the head. God, the head. Too small for the body. Egg-shaped, smooth, no hair, no ears, no nose, just a flat surface where a face should be. Empty. Void. But it was watching her. She could feel it. That eyeless gaze focused on her with terrible intensity. A long pause. Static. Heavy breathing audible on the recording, not from the radio interference, from Katherine herself. Gasping, hyperventilating. Then her voice, barely a whisper. Ground. It's inside the cockpit with me. Silence. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Then the ground controller. All pretense of calm gone. Test Flight 7, say again. Did you say inside the cockpit? Over. Yes. Yes. It came through the windscreen, through solid glass, like the glass wasn't there. It's standing, no, floating behind me. I can see its reflection in the instrument panel. That empty face, those 2 long arms, ground. I can feel its breath on the back of my neck, cold. So cold. It smells like ozone, like electrical fire. What do I do? What do I do? Over. Katherine's hands were frozen on the controls. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around, to look at the thing behind her. But she couldn't move. Terror had locked her muscles. The cold intensified. Her breath came in visible puffs. Frost formed on the inside of the windscreen, spreading outward from where the entity had passed through. And the breathing sound. So close now, right behind her head. She could feel vibrations in the air, rhythmic compression and expansion, as if the thing was physically displacing atmosphere with each breath. But it wasn't breathing. Not really. How could something without lungs breathe? This was something else. Something that mimicked breathing, copied it, used it to communicate or interact with the physical world. Test Flight 7. Stay calm. Listen to my voice. You are in control of that aircraft. Whatever you think you're seeing, it cannot hurt you. Focus on your instruments. Focus on bringing the plane home. Can you do that? Over. Ground. You don't understand. It's trying to communicate. The breathing pattern, it's not random. There's rhythm. Pattern. It's almost like speech. But I can't understand it. The sounds don't match any language I know. It's just breath and sound and ground. It touched me. Its hand, if you can call it a hand. It touched my shoulder. I felt pressure. Actual physical pressure. This is real. This is happening. Over. The touch had been gentle, almost curious. Long fingers resting on her shoulder for just a moment. Cold. So cold it burned. Katherine glanced down. 5 dark marks on her leather flight jacket, like fingerprints, but larger, wrong proportions. The entity's hand withdrew. Katherine could see it in the instrument panel reflection, moving, reaching toward the controls. Ground. It's touching my instrument panel. The altimeter just shattered, glass everywhere. The compass is smoking. Something's happening to the aircraft systems. I'm switching to backup instruments, but I don't know how long they'll last. Over! Katherine's voice was ragged now, control slipping away completely. The next minute of the recording is chaos. Katherine's voice rising and falling, sometimes coherent, sometimes just fragments. The breathing sound on the radio growing louder, drowning out her words. Ground control trying desperately to maintain contact, asking for position, altitude. any information. And then, at 10:17 in the morning, Katherine Sullivan made her final transmission. Her voice was different, flat, emotionless, not scared anymore, just resigned. Ground, this is Test Flight 7, final report. The entity has shown me something. I understand now. It's been here always, in the sky, watching, waiting. We don't fly alone. We've never flown alone. There are things up here with us, things we can't see, can't measure, can't comprehend. They exist in the spaces between. The empty air isn't empty. Nothing is empty. The sky is full, so full. And they've decided to let me see, really see. I wish they hadn't. I wish I could go back to not knowing. But it's too late now. I've seen. And once you see, you can't unsee. Tell my father I'm sorry. Tell him I shouldn't have flown. He was right. Some boundaries shouldn't be crossed. Some mysteries should stay mysteries. Ground. I'm not alone. I've never been alone. And neither are you. Remember that. When you fly, when you look up at empty sky, remember that it's not empty. They're always there, watching, breathing, waiting. Test Flight 7 out. Static. Silence. The recording continues for another 12 minutes. Nothing but dead air and the sound of breathing, slow, rhythmic, growing fainter. Then it stops. Katherine Sullivan never landed at Oahu. Her aircraft never appeared on radar. No wreckage was ever found. No body recovered. The official Navy report, dated January 19, 1935, lists her as lost at sea due to probable engine failure and subsequent crash into the Pacific Ocean. A memorial service was held at the Naval Air Station. Her father received a folded flag and a letter of commendation for her brave service to her country. Her name appears on no monument, no historical marker, no Aviation Hall of Fame. She simply vanished. I've spent 18 months trying to verify Katherine Sullivan's existence. Birth records from Pittsburgh, school enrollment at Vassar, pilot license applications, banking records, anything that would prove she lived. Every search leads nowhere. It's as if someone erased her systematically. Every document, every photograph, every mention in newspapers or official reports. But they missed the recording. I don't know how it survived, how it ended up in that forgotten archive. But I'm grateful it did. The deeper I dug, the more inconsistencies I found. The Pacific Test Flight program officially ended in 1934, according to Navy records. Yet Katherine Sullivan was supposedly hired in November of that year for a program that no longer existed. The Oahu facility she trained at? No maps show it. No construction records, no mention in naval infrastructure reports from that era. It's as if someone went back and erased not just Katherine Sullivan, but the entire program she worked for. Why? I found a partial answer in the basement of a retired Navy clerk's home in Virginia. The man was 94 years old, dying of cancer. He'd worked in naval records from 1948 to 1983, 35 years of filing and archiving classified documents. There were programs we weren't supposed to talk about, he told me. His voice weak, raspy. Black programs, off-book operations, testing things the public couldn't know about. I filed hundreds of reports, saw things that didn't make sense, aircraft encounters, unexplained phenomena, pilots reporting impossible things, and every few years an order would come down, purge the records, destroy the files, make it like it never happened. Did you ever see the name Katherine Sullivan? I asked. He closed his eyes, thought for a long moment. 1935, Pacific Test Flight. Female pilot. Yes, I remember. There was a directive in 1952. Sanitize all records related to Sullivan's flight. Remove her from databases. Destroy physical evidence. Classify everything above top secret. Someone high up wanted her erased completely. We were given a week to complete the purge. Why? What was so dangerous about her story? She saw them, he whispered. The things in the sky, and she told people, testified about it, before she disappeared. The Navy couldn't have civilians knowing that their pilots were encountering non-human entities. Would destroy public confidence, so they made her disappear, made the whole program disappear. What testimony? Where? Classified hearings, Congressional Committee, 1935, February or March. I saw transcripts. They asked her detailed questions about what she encountered. She described everything. The breathing sounds, the entity, the way it passed through solid matter. And she wasn't the only one. 4 other pilots testified at the same hearing. All reported similar experiences over the Pacific. What happened to those pilots? He looked at me with haunted eyes. They all died within 6 months of testifying. Plane crashes, car accidents, heart attacks, all young men in their 20s and 30s, all dead before 1936. And the transcripts? Destroyed. Everything destroyed. I only saw them because I was filing them the week before the purge order came down. I remember reading them, thinking they were the most terrifying documents I'd ever seen. These pilots were scared, really scared. And they were telling the truth. I could tell from the way they described things, the consistency across testimonies. These weren't hallucinations or equipment malfunctions. These men saw something real. The clerk died 2 weeks after our conversation. His daughter found my business card in his wallet, called to tell me he'd left something for me. A manila envelope hidden in his safety deposit box, instructions to give it to me if anything happened to him. Inside were photocopies, degraded, nearly illegible, but readable enough, partial transcripts from the 1935 congressional hearings. Katherine Sullivan's testimony filled 12 pages. The other 4 pilots' testimonies added another 28 pages. I spent 3 days reading them, taking notes, cross-referencing details. Every pilot described the same phenomenon. The breathing sounds on radio, the shadows in peripheral vision, the entities that could pass through solid matter, the sense of being watched, accompanied, studied. But Katherine Sullivan's testimony went further than the others. She described the entity showing her something, images, concepts, information downloaded directly into her mind. It wanted me to understand, she testified, that we've never been alone, that the sky is inhabited, that these entities have watched humanity since we first looked up. They're curious about us, confused by us. We're anomalies to them, creatures that shouldn't exist but do. And now we're invading their space, flying through their territory. They don't know what to do about us. A congressman asked, "Did this entity threaten you, Miss Sullivan?" "No, sir. It was curious, almost gentle, but its presence was overwhelming. Like standing too close to a waterfall, the sheer power of it, the difference in scale. I'm a pilot. I'm trained to handle mechanical systems, navigate by instruments. But this thing, it operated outside any frame of reference I have. It existed in ways I can't describe with human language. Are there more of them? Thousands, maybe millions. They fill the upper atmosphere, invisible to us most of the time. But they're there, always there, watching us fly through their world like we're children playing in a garden we don't understand." The hearing transcript ended abruptly. Last page torn off. No conclusion, no final statement. But I had enough, because Katherine Sullivan deserves to be remembered, not just for her skill as a pilot, not just for her courage in defying gender expectations, but for what she discovered. She saw something true, something terrifying, something that changes how we understand the sky above us. I've shared the recording with colleagues, played it at academic conferences, Written articles for aviation history journals. Most people dismiss it, call it a hoax, point out the lack of corroborating evidence, suggest the recording is either fabricated or misattributed to the wrong time period. But some people believe. Other pilots, mostly. The ones who've flown long solo missions. The ones who've spent hours alone in vast, empty sky. They've all felt it. That sense of being watched, that prickle on the back of the neck, that flash of movement and peripheral vision that disappears when you look directly at it. They know Katherine Sullivan told the truth. 3 months ago, I mentioned at the start of this account, a commercial pilot reported hearing breathing sounds on the emergency frequency. The incident was logged and forgotten, but I found his name. David Reyes, captain with Pacific Airways. 23 years of flying experience, clean record. No history of mental health issues or substance abuse. I called him. He didn't want to talk about it at first, said he'd already filed his report, said there was nothing more to add. But I told him about Katherine Sullivan, about the 1935 recording, about what she'd seen. There was a long silence on the phone line. Then he spoke. It was on the Los Angeles to Honolulu route, night flight, somewhere over the Pacific. I can't remember the exact coordinates. I was flying on autopilot, monitoring instruments, everything normal. Then the emergency frequency crackled to life. No words, just breathing, like someone keying a microphone and breathing into it, slow, deep, wrong somehow. I responded, asked for identification, asked for location. No answer, just more breathing. It lasted maybe 45 seconds, then stopped. I reported it to air traffic control. They said their equipment showed no transmissions, nothing on their end. They suggested equipment malfunction on my aircraft, but I know what I heard. And here's the thing I didn't include in my report. When I looked out my cockpit window while that breathing was happening, I saw a shadow, moving alongside the aircraft, same altitude, same speed, matching my flight path exactly. When I looked directly at it, there was nothing. But in my peripheral vision, something was there. Something was flying with me. Just like you described that 1935 pilot said, "I'm not crazy, I know what I saw." I asked if he'd be willing to go on record, share his experience publicly. He refused. Said he couldn't risk his career, couldn't risk people thinking he was unstable. I understood, but I told him about the other reports I'd found. 1942, a military transport pilot over the Atlantic reported seeing a humanoid figure pacing his aircraft during a supply run to England. 1953, a test pilot at Edwards Air Force Base described a presence in his cockpit during a high-altitude flight. He said it felt like something was sitting in the empty navigator's seat behind him. 1967. Multiple commercial pilots reported unusual radio interference on trans-Pacific flights. The interference always sounded like organic breathing. 1979. A bush pilot in Alaska radioed ground control to report that something was following his plane. He landed safely, but refused to fly solo missions again. The pattern continues. Every few years, different pilots, different aircraft, different locations, but always the same elements. Radio interference, breathing sounds, shadows in peripheral vision, the sense of being accompanied by something that shouldn't exist. David Reyes was quiet for a long time after I shared these reports. Then, he said something that still keeps me awake at night. What if they've always been there? What if the sky was never empty? What if we just couldn't see them until aviation technology reached a certain level? What if Katherine Sullivan was one of the first to fly high enough, long enough, alone enough for them to reveal themselves? And what if they're still up there, watching every flight, accompanying every pilot? We just don't know it most of the time because they choose to remain hidden? I didn't have an answer. I still don't. 2 weeks ago, I received an email from a woman named Dr. Patricia Morrison. She's a physicist at MIT, specializes in atmospheric phenomena and electromagnetic fields. She said she'd read my article about Katherine Sullivan, said she had information that might be relevant. We met at a coffee shop in Cambridge. She brought a thick folder of documents, research papers, measurement data, photographs. There are anomalies in the upper atmosphere, she said without preamble. Regions where electromagnetic readings don't match our models. Pockets of space where instruments return impossible data. Areas that seem to exist outside normal physics. We've known about them for decades, but can't explain them. The military and NASA classify most of this data. They don't want the public to know how little we understand about the sky above us. She spread photographs across the table. Infrared satellite images, radar plots, electromagnetic field maps. Look here, she pointed, and here, and here. These are the anomalous regions. They move, shift, appear, and disappear. They don't follow weather patterns. They're not related to solar activity or geomagnetic storms. They just exist, unexplained, unmeasured by any conventional means. I studied the images. The anomalies appeared as darker patches against the lighter background. Vaguely humanoid shapes, some small, some enormous, scattered across the atmosphere at various altitudes. How many are there? I asked. We don't know. Our instruments can only detect them under specific conditions, specific wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation, specific atmospheric pressures. Most of the time they're invisible to our technology. We estimate there could be hundreds, thousands, maybe more. What are they? She shook her head. We don't know. The data doesn't fit any known atmospheric phenomenon. They're not weather systems, not particulate matter, not electromagnetic disturbances in the traditional sense. They're something else. Something we don't have language or concepts to describe properly. Could they be living? I asked. She met my eyes. Define living. They persist. They move with apparent purpose. They seem to react to aircraft. Several documented cases of commercial and military flights reporting unusual experiences correlate with our measurements of these anomalies. But are they alive in a biological sense? I don't know. They don't fit our definitions of life, but they don't fit our definitions of non-life either. They exist in a category we haven't named yet. Katherine Sullivan, I said, what she encountered in 1935. Could it have been one of these? Almost certainly. The coordinates of her final transmission match an area we've measured high concentrations of anomalous readings. The Pacific Ocean has more of these entities, for lack of a better word, than anywhere else on Earth. We don't know why. Something about the vast empty space, the isolation, the distance from human civilization. They seem to congregate there. Or maybe they've always been there and we just measure them better over open ocean where there's less electromagnetic interference. Are they dangerous? She hesitated. We don't have enough data. Most pilots who report encounters land safely. But there have been disappearances. Katherine Sullivan. Several others over the years. Planes that vanish without trace. No wreckage, no bodies, no explanation. Are the entities responsible? Or just present when other factors cause crashes? We can't say with certainty. Why hasn't this been made public? Because we don't understand it. Because it would cause panic. Because people don't like mysteries they can't solve. The government prefers to classify the data. Keep it quiet. Dismiss reports as equipment malfunctions or pilot hallucinations. Maintain the illusion that we understand and control our airspace. But we don't. No, we don't. The sky is full of things we can't see, can't measure, can't explain. Katherine Sullivan was right about that. We've never flown alone. We fly through a world more complex and strange than we want to admit. She gathered her documents, prepared to leave. One more thing, she said. The breathing sounds you mentioned, the ones pilots report hearing on their radios. We've analyzed several recordings. There's a pattern, a mathematical structure to the rhythm and frequency. It's not random noise. It's not equipment malfunction. It's communication, an attempt at communication. They're trying to speak to us. We just don't understand the language yet. What are they trying to say? She smiled sadly. That's the question, isn't it? Maybe they're warning us. Maybe they're greeting us. Maybe they're just curious. Or maybe they're saying something we're not capable of understanding. Maybe human consciousness isn't developed enough to comprehend what they're trying to communicate. She stood to leave. Thank you for telling Katherine Sullivan's story, she said. She deserves to be remembered. She saw something true, something important, even if we can't fully understand it yet. I'm writing this account now because I believe people need to know. Not to cause panic, not to discourage air travel, but because truth matters. Understanding matters. Even partial, incomplete understanding is better than willful ignorance. The sky is not empty. It never has been. Katherine Sullivan discovered that in January of 1935. Other pilots have discovered it since. More will discover it in the future. We share the atmosphere with something else, something ancient, something vast, something beyond our current ability to comprehend or categorize. They watch us, follow us. Sometimes they reveal themselves. Most of the time they remain hidden. Why? I don't know. What do they want? I don't know. Are they dangerous? Maybe. Sometimes I don't know. But I know they're there. The evidence is overwhelming once you start looking for it. Pilot reports spanning decades, electromagnetic anomalies measured by scientific instruments, unexplained disappearances over empty ocean. Katherine Sullivan saw them clearly. They revealed themselves to her, showed her the truth, and that truth was so overwhelming, so incomprehensible that she couldn't process it, couldn't find words adequate to describe what she was experiencing. The sky is full, she said in her final transmission. So full. I think about that phrase constantly. What did she mean? Full of what? How many entities exist up there? Are they individuals or a collective consciousness? Do they communicate with each other? Do they have purposes and intentions we could recognize? I don't know. But I know they're real. And I know that every time I look up at seemingly empty sky, I'm looking at something far more complex and mysterious than I can imagine. Last month, I was offered funding for a research project, a private foundation interested in unexplained phenomena. They want me to compile a comprehensive database of pilot encounter reports, interview witnesses, analyze patterns, try to understand what Katherine Sullivan and others have experienced. I accepted. Not because I expect to find definitive answers. I don't think definitive answers exist for something like this. We're trying to understand something that operates outside our frame of reference, something that doesn't conform to our physics or our logic. But I think we owe it to Katherine Sullivan to try, to acknowledge what she saw, to take her final transmission seriously rather than dismissing it as hallucination or equipment failure. She was brave, skilled, rational, a trained observer. When she said there was something in the sky with her, she meant it literally. When she said the sky is full, she was reporting what she observed. We should listen. We should remember. And the next time you're on a flight, cruising at 35,000 feet, looking out the window at empty blue sky, remember that it's not empty. They're up there, always, watching, breathing, moving through spaces we can't perceive. Katherine Sullivan saw them, heard them, felt their presence. And according to recent reports, they're still there, still accompanying flights, still revealing themselves to certain pilots under certain conditions. The sky was never empty, and we were never alone. 6 weeks ago, I experienced something that confirmed everything I'd researched, everything Katherine Sullivan described in her final transmission. I was flying from Washington to San Francisco. Red-eye flight. The cabin was dark, most passengers asleep. I couldn't sleep. Too much on my mind. Katherine's story, the congressional testimony, the patterns I'd identified in pilot reports. I was sitting in a window seat, row 23, looking out at the black sky. We were somewhere over Nebraska, maybe Wyoming. Hard to tell at night, just darkness below, stars above. Then I saw it, a shape, moving alongside the aircraft, same altitude, same speed, visible only in my peripheral vision. When I looked directly at it, nothing, just empty night sky, but when I looked away, there it was, pacing us, keeping perfect formation. I held my breath, waited, watched, and I heard it, faint, through the white noise of the aircraft engines, a sound that shouldn't have been there, like breathing, slow, rhythmic, deep. I looked around the cabin, other passengers asleep, flight attendants in their jump seats, no one else noticed. I looked back out the window. The shape was closer now, maybe 50 feet from the wing, dark, smoky, humanoid, but wrong, just like Katherine had described. My hands trembled, my heart raced. This was real. This was actually happening. Then it moved. Not like anything physical moves, it simply shifted position. One moment outside my window, the next moment ahead of the aircraft, then behind, then beside again. Impossible physics, impossible movement. I wanted to call a flight attendant, tell someone. But what would I say? That I was seeing things? Having a breakdown? So I just watched, documented mentally, remembered every detail. The encounter lasted maybe 10 minutes, then the shape faded, dissipated, became harder to see even in peripheral vision, and the breathing sound stopped. When we landed in San Francisco, I was shaking, not from fear, from understanding, from knowing that Katherine Sullivan hadn't hallucinated, hadn't imagined anything. She saw them, and now I'd seen them too. I haven't flown since. Can't bring myself to do it, knowing they're up there, knowing we share that space with something we can't understand. Maybe that makes me a coward. Maybe Katherine would be disappointed, but I'm also a researcher, and I know what I saw, what I experienced. The entities are real, and they're paying attention to us. After I published my article about Katherine Sullivan, the responses came in waves, most skeptical, some hostile, a few supportive. But then I started receiving emails from pilots. Current pilots, active duty, commercial, military, private. They'd all experienced something similar. The breathing sounds, the shapes in peripheral vision, the sense of being watched. Most wouldn't go on record, too scared for their careers. But they thanked me for telling Katherine's story, for validating their experiences. One email stood out, from a woman named Captain Jennifer Martinez, commercial pilot for United Airlines, 20 years of flying experience. I saw one 3 days ago, she wrote. Los Angeles to Tokyo route, over the Pacific. Same area where Katherine Sullivan disappeared. It followed us for 2 hours. I didn't report it, didn't tell my co-pilot, just watched it in my peripheral vision and tried to stay calm. I thought I was losing my mind, but after reading your article, I realize I'm not crazy. Thank you for telling Katherine's story. She deserves to be remembered. And we need to know we're not alone. Not in the sense of having companion entities, but in the sense of not being the only ones who've experienced this, I replied. Asked if she'd be willing to share more details. She called me the next day. We talked for 3 hours. Her description matched Catherine's exactly. The dark, smoky form, the impossible movements, the breathing sounds that followed no pattern she recognized. "What do you think they want?" she asked me. "I don't know. Maybe they're just curious. Maybe we're fascinating to them, strange creatures that build machines to invade their space. Or maybe they've always been there and we're just now developing the technology to perceive them. Aviation brought us into their world, and they're responding. Should we stop flying? I don't think they're dangerous. Not inherently. Katherine Sullivan's entity could have killed her, could have crashed her plane, but it didn't. It showed her things, tried to communicate. It was curious, alien, overwhelming, but not malicious. But she disappeared. Yes, but we don't know why. Maybe she chose to go with them. Maybe they took her to show her more. Or maybe... I trailed off. Maybe what? Maybe the government made her disappear. Because she knew too much, talked too much. They couldn't have a pilot testifying to Congress about non-human entities in our airspace. So they silenced her. Jennifer Martinez was quiet for a long moment. If I keep flying, and I keep seeing them, will they make me disappear too? I don't know, but I think the fact that you're still flying, still seeing them, still alive, that suggests they don't want to harm you. You're being observed, studied maybe, but not hunted. That's not as comforting as you might think. I know. We've stayed in contact. She reports her sightings to me now. 3 more encounters in the past 6 weeks. All over the Pacific. All following the same pattern. She's not scared anymore. Just curious. Like Katherine Sullivan was curious. And I think that's what the entities respond to. Curiosity, openness, the willingness to witness something impossible without immediate fear or rejection. Katherine Sullivan had that quality. Jennifer Martinez has it. And maybe that's why they reveal themselves to certain people and not others. Not everyone is ready to see. Not everyone can handle the truth that the sky is full, that we share our world with beings we don't understand. But those who are ready, those who can witness without breaking, they get to see. And maybe, just maybe, that's a gift. A terrifying, overwhelming, life-changing gift. But a gift nonetheless.